Hi, and thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to be talking about mala making and how you can make a mala at home. Mala making is an ancient art and tradition, and it's a great way to really connect with your practice. I recommend making your own malas opposed to purchasing them, because then you really get to put your own creative energy into it. That's called putting the Shakti into something. So today we're going to look at the different tools that you need and the supplies that you will require. And we're going to talk a little bit about the history and the use of a mala when we are practicing meditation like japa. So first, let's take a look at some of our resources that we're going to use today. So here I have two different types of stone bead. I've got an amethyst and a jade stone bead here. And these beads could be any size. These malas require 108 beads. There's 108 beads in a mala because 108 is a sacred number in yoga. So since we're having to use so many beads, it's better to buy these beads in bulk. The next thing we're going to need is some string. Now, it's not just any string. We need a string that's durable, especially if you use the larger beads like I'm using. And so this is actually a waxed linen string that I get from my local bead supply store, and you can get it in any color. It's a little bit expensive to purchase, so make sure you get a color that is versatile and that you will be able to use with many different projects. Traditionally, wax string is going to be very sturdy as it is, but we always want to make sure that our malas last a long time. We also have some silk string here that's used for embroidery, and I've got this string in the same color as one of my beads, but this could be in any color that you'd like. And we have some scissors here. So we're going to get started right away, and as we make this mala together, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the practice of japa and how we can use malas to stay present and engaged in our meditation practice. As we are going to get started here, I'm just going to go ahead and release these beads. So I'm going to cut these beads, and I'm going to use the other set of beads to sort of contain them so they don't spill all over the floor. There we go. Excellent. And now I'm going to take my wax string, and I'm going to measure my wax string using my arm. So I typically measure 4 arm lengths for a mala, especially if I'm going to be doubling it up. I might even measure a little bit more. So 1 arm length, 2 arm lengths, 3 arm lengths, and 4 arm lengths. All right, perfect. So I'm going to clip that right now, set that aside. So I'm going to start by making 1 knot. And I start by making a knot. I want to give myself a little bit of a tail. So I make the knot, and I can actually double it up, because depending on the beads that you're using, each of these stone beads has a hole that's been drilled in the center of it. And those holes can be big or they can be small. So you sort of want to look at your beads before you get your string so that you know that you've got string that's going to be appropriate for them. For example, this string would not be appropriate for pearls because the holes cut into pearls are very, very small and are only big enough for silk string. So I'm going to start just by putting several different beads on my mala. So some people prefer to do this one at a time. I like to do it so that I am getting more done all at once, so I batch my task. And so instead of putting 1 bead on at a time, I'm going to string on several beads, sometimes even up to 20 at a time. And then from there, I'm going to start to knot them. So you'll notice that when we are working with traditional mala creation, each of the beads are secured and knotted. So we don't simply string the beads onto the cord. We actually go in and knot the beads so that each one of them has its own unique place on the necklace. So we'll get these last 2 on here, and then we'll go ahead and start knotting. Now, if you are doing a pattern or if you are wanting to create stations on your mala similar to a rosary, then what you're going to want to do is plan that out ahead of time. If they have stations, they have 4 stations. Divide 108 by 4, and that gives you the number that you will need for each of your stations. You would go through and you would create your pattern in whatever way feels right for you, remembering and accounting for the fact that we don't want to add additional beads in. We want to keep the beads on the mala to 108. So now I've got the beads here, and you can see they're at the end with the knot. And I'm going to go ahead. I've got so much slack here that that's actually why I do it. I'm going to go ahead and let some of these beads come down. Now I've got one bead here, and I'm going to take the bead in one hand. I'm going to loop the thread around my fingers, 2 fingers, and hold the bead in my thumb. And then I push the bead through. Now the knot is right at the edge of the bead. I take my index finger here, and then I take my opposite thumb and index finger, and I move the loop down all the way, hopefully you can see this, to the very bottom. So there's one little loop here. Now I keep my fingers very tight there, very, very tight, and knot. So here you go, there's one knot there. And we're going to do that in rapid succession. I'm going to show it to you 2 more times slowly, and then we'll go ahead and we'll do it a little bit quicker. Here I've got one bead that's knotted and one bead that's loose. I slide the loose bead down to its knotted friend, and then again I wrap the thread. I then take the beads and put them through the loop, holding them very tightly at the base of the bead that we're knotting in. Now I pull the string with my finger and then hold the string right at the base of the bead so that we don't have any space in between the bead and the knot. We really want it to be tight. And we do this because then when we're working with the mala in our japa practice, we can feel the difference between the beads. If we don't have the knots, it's harder to feel the difference. So we'll do one more time slowly. Again, here are my beads. We've got 2 that have been knotted. They're not going anywhere. We add a third. It's not been knotted yet. I hold the beads in my hand just like this, wrap the thread around, and then I'm going to bring these beads through. Holding the thread right at the base of the other bead, taking my index finger in here to pull it nice and tight, and voila, knotted. Okay, let's do that a little quicker. So typically what I do with this is I'll sit on my couch. I can pretty much bust out a mala in about 2 hours. If I am just doing it, watching TV, it's a great activity, similar to even, I don't know, crocheting or knitting if you like those other needle arts. Mala making can be really a wonderful meditative task in and of itself. You see, as I'm going, I'm just letting the other beads fall down in the slack, and I'm working from the back up. This is actually so much easier than trying to work from the top down, because then I don't have to worry about all that slack, and the slack actually gives me some place for these beads to sit while I'm knotting their friends. So moving all the way through. And then once we finish this section, we will go ahead and we will add our next batch of beads. I typically like to work in batches of 10 or 20. I'll put 10 beads on or 20 beads on at a time. And then I'll work until I get them all knotted, and then I'll add another batch. So we'll let that sit for just a second, and I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about the tassel. The tassel can be made with this silk embroidery thread. And this is a mess, but that's okay. It's perfect for what I need. I'm going to take about, I don't know, maybe 2 arms, 3 arms worth. If I was to look at it, I bet that's about 3 arms, let's see. All right, and then just check in and see if there are any little knots came in. Sometimes they do, and that's okay. Typically, if you get a knot like I just got, you can pull on the loop of the knot to get it to come out. It's usually just a kink itself. All right, here we go. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to double it on itself. It doesn't have to be that precise, but we want to be conservative with our thread, and then we double it again. So now we've got 4 strings here. We're going to do that another time. And we're going to do it another time. And we'll do it one last time. So you can make them thicker. It's totally up to you. But this is a great start. So I'm going to set this down for just a second. That's ready there. Now I'm going to go back to my string and I'm going to cut another piece. This I'm less concerned with its length. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this bundle of thread here. Make sure that it's nice and contained. And I'm going to begin to wrap the string I just cut around it. I'm going to wrap it around twice, and then I'm going to knot this string so that we can use it to secure our tassel. So now that I've got a knot in there, I'm just going to wrap it around until I get to the end of the string, or until I get to the desired thickness of my bind here. And when I get there, I'm going to take one of the ends from inside and I'm going to knot the binding to the actual tassel itself. Now you can buy tassels. You don't have to make the tassel yourself. I just like to do these things, and I like to really put all of my own creative Shakti into it when I can. Sometimes I don't have time, but a lot of times I do. Adjust anything that you need to adjust. And then now from here, I'm just going to trim up the ends. And then I like to sort of like brush it out and down, and then make any final trims that I need to make. Now again, you can buy these already pre-made for you off of Etsy or eBay. They have silk tassels. They have all sorts of different types of tassels. I'll sometimes even make them out of the wax linen because I like the way that they look and feel. And then you can get them wet and you don't have to worry about it. So let's take a look at what it would look like to have this mala all finished and ready to use. And through magic, we have a mala here that I've made. And this mala is exactly the same type of mala that we would be making if we had finished the one we started. Now, there are a few things I want to talk about. So the mala itself has 108 beads, and typically right in the center, you'll see a guru bead. The guru bead is not meant to be touched. Actually, what you do is that guru bead is the bead that brings the mala together. So you would do all of your knots here, and then you would basically knot these 2 strings together and then place a guru bead right here and then attach a tassel or any sort of charm. Now, when you use this mala, you're going to use it in your right hand. And you're going to use the mala by placing the mala on your right ring finger, just like so. The guru bead will rest right on your ring finger, and your thumb will actually touch this very first bead. Now, the index finger never touches a mala. This is a tantric practice, and it's part of the tradition of japa. As I move the beads with my thumb, I can secure the mala with my middle finger, that's fine. Or I can leave my middle finger open, but my index finger never touches the mala. I'll move the mala all the way around as I'm chanting or praying or contemplating or meditating. And once I get all the way around, I stop. And now I go back the other way. So I do 108 the opposite direction. If you're doing 2 rounds of 108. Now, if you're not doing 2 rounds of 108, you can just stop. But sometimes 2 or 3 rounds of 108 can be really great. We use our malas with chanting and different meditative practices to help us to maintain focus. It can be a very powerful practice. Ultimately, malas are great for fashion and for practice. If you have any questions, don't ever hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you and to support you in establishing a practice that helps you to realize your enlightened state of being.